Now, on this particular machine, this is an SCMI machine. This may be different than the one that you have at your particular shop. You might have the old Powermatics. The shortest board that can be safely run through these types of machines is 16 inches. Okay? So, let's talk a little bit about the machine and how it works. What's really happening here on these machines is there's a set of knives that are on top, and they're taking the top layer of lumber off, and it's assumed that the bottom part of the board is flat. It's making the top surface parallel to the bottom. Well, if you've run across a board, let's say that's twisted or cupped, you can't run it through this type of machine, a planer, and expect it to come out flat. It's not going to do that. What it'll do is it'll flatten out the board, and it'll make a twisted cupped board. It'll make it thinner. That's all it's going to do. So if you really want to think about it, it's called a thickness planer. Okay? Now this particular planer has a 24-inch wide bed. It goes up and down using with the use of these two knobs. And this is the power machine. And I'll demonstrate that, the power button, in a minute. Okay, it has an LED readout that's digital. And to convert it, I have a conversion chart here. So if I wanted to set this, for instance, run this board, I would measure it. It's 1 1/8 inches. Now the rule of thumb is on a planer, you don't want to remove any more lumber than 1/16 per pass at a time. Clearly noted on my machine. So if this is 1 1/8 inches, then I would set the machine to 1 1/16. So I would simply lower this bed to create a larger gap between the top of the knives and the top of the bed. I'd lower the bed to 1. And I look at 16th on my chart here. It's 0.0625, 0.062. If I had another place, it'd be a 5. Okay? When you're running boards through here, you do not want to place the lumber in the machine and stand behind the machine. If the machine, for some reason, binds up and kicks this back out at you, it can go right through you. Okay? Or it could break your leg, or it could break your hip, or it could just give you a nasty bruise. Either way, what you want to do is you want to get in the habit of standing off to the side, so that when you place the lumber in, you push it forward, and then you stand off to the side. If something does happen, then it doesn't at least hit you. Also, make sure before you start putting any lumber in this machine that no one is standing back here talking or socializing or just watching or observing. Make sure that all your friends or all the other students are back out of your work zone. My work zones in this particular shop are clearly marked on the floor. This is my workspace. You're not allowed to come in here and mess with it. Okay, few rules. What happens if a board that I'm running goes in there and the board gets stuck? What do? Should I lower the table? Absolutely not. That's the worst thing you can do. These blades are spinning towards you. If you lower the table and you release the pressure bars that are inside this machine, those knives could possibly kick this board back out at you. Should you look inside and see what's going on? No, absolutely not. Not unless you want to get your teeth broken or have something come back in your face. That's the last thing you do. This particular machine, along with most planers, have what's called like a lever bar. What it does is it forces an infeed roller up on the bottom side of this, which puts more compression on that board and helps it feed through the machine. Okay, if that doesn't work, you've moved this lever over and the board still won't go through, then what you need to do is you don't ever raise this machine or lower this machine while the board is running through. You can damage the machine, you can damage your lumber. It's just a bad idea. Also, what you want to do is you want to make sure that when you're running lumber through here, some things you want to think about is these basically have what's known as cathedrals. Each piece of lumber has grain. Some of them look like feathers on a duck's back. You want to make sure that these feathers, if you will, these cathedrals is what they're actually called, you want to make sure they're pointing out the machine, okay? If you have them pointing into the machine, a lot of times the cutters can come and raise that grain. Now, sometimes you run into a dilemma. You have some feathers or cathedrals that are running this way, and in this particular case, we have some that are running that way. This is just some of the dynamics that you have to deal with when you're working with lumber. So what I would do is I would look at this and I'd say, look, the majority of the grain seems to be running this way. I'm going to insert the board this direction. Now, when you're done using that pry bar, I didn't put that back, I need to do that. That's something that all students need to get in the habit of doing, this compression bar, if you will. Once you use it, the board gets through, put it back to 0, okay? Students that are new to this program, they'll come in here and they'll stick a board straight onto the cutters, okay? That's fine, but what you want to do is you want to give it a slight rocking or moving back and forth. And what you're doing is you're giving that roller, instead of meeting that roller head on this way, what you're doing is you're kind of working that front edge up underneath it and giving it a chance to grab the lumber, okay? Anyway, splits, screws, knots, staples, you go grab a piece of lumber from the wood room. You know, they may have left staples on here from when they were tagging the side of the lumber, or somebody may have got a piece and put a brad nail or something and recycled it and put it back in the wood room and you didn't know it. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you check your lumber for any nails or screws or staples. Also, you want to watch for loose splits and knots, because if you have a board and they have a bunch of knots that are loose, or the wood doesn't feel like the integrity of it's very strong, or it's maybe dried out, could be old, decayed, well, you want to find another piece of lumber, because if you send it through this machine, it may possibly just destroy your piece of lumber, okay? And they are reason to be cautious, because they can spit out the back of the machine. All right, let's talk about sheet stock. Sheet stock consists of manufactured products such as plywood, MDF, melamine, particle board, anything that man makes in 4x8 sheets or of that nature. We don't need to run them through this machine. Okay, this machine is only, I repeat this, is only made for solid lumber. Okay, if you want a piece of 3/4 inch plywood or 3/4 inch melamine or 1/2 inch MDF, we'll go to the store and we'll buy that thickness. We don't need to buy 1/2 inch thick MDF or 3/4 inch MDF and run it through a thickness planer to make it 1/2 inch. If we want 1/2 inch, we'll buy it. So why don't I go ahead and I'll demonstrate running this machine for you. It's going to be loud. I'm going to turn on the fans and I'll be right back. I'm back now, and like I said, I was going to demonstrate to you how to run this board through this planer. So I've got the machine set to the proper thickness. This is 1 1/8 inch thick. The machine is set to 1 1/16. I use my conversion chart to make sure that it's the decimal equivalent of 1/16 of an inch. So I turn this machine on and I wait for it to come to a complete full revolution before I run the board through. The light's now on and it says, okay, I'm ready for you to put lumber through me, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now, what you'll notice is that I'll sit back here at the back. I won't stick my hands underneath here and run the risk of getting my hand pinched between the bottom of this board and the top of this table. What I'll do instead is I'll set it on here. My body position is off to the side in case something comes back. I set it on there. Notice I'll stick it in slightly. I move it back and forth and it starts to run. I'll let the board go. At which time I'll walk around and I support the outfeed side of this. I don't just sit here like this and do nothing. I support it, I pull it out. Now, how much can I raise the table of this planer? 1/16. So what I do is I take the good side that I just got done planing, I flip it over, and I set it on top, or if I have a lot of boards, I'll just set them right here as they come out. Okay? So now, while the machine is still running, I can raise this to 16. 1/16, 1 and 1/16 minus a 16th is 1 inch. So I'll raise it to 1 inch. Again, I stand to the side, I put the lumber through, I check my back area, make sure that no one's back here socializing or screwing around. Okay? Pretty simple, right? Now, this board was pretty flat. Didn't have a lot of cup, twists, or bows, or any of that stuff. But if it had a lot of cups or it was twisted, I'd first have to go to the joiner and face join it. Pretty simple, right? Remember, the shortest board you can run through this machine is 16 inches. If you run a shorter board through here, you run the risk of it turning sideways and the grain becoming, going, if you will, against the rotation of the knives, and then you have a bunch of chopsticks or toothpicks that fast. Also, if a board gets stuck, we don't panic, we don't lower the table, we use this lever right here, this compression lever, and we try and put it through that way. If that doesn't happen, the reason most of the times boards get stuck in a planer is that students take lumber from the wood room, okay, and it's slightly cupped or twisted. In other words, it's not nice and flat like this is. Remember, these are machined pieces of equipment. So when you have a board that's cupped, twisted, bowed, something like that, you're expecting this machine to do miracle work, okay? It's maybe rocking on here because it's twisted. Well, before you can take a piece of lumber that's twisted, bowed, or cupped or something like that, you have to take it to a joiner and you face join it. And we've already talked about that on using the joiner, face joining lumber. We make the bottom perfectly flat, we place the good side down, run the twisted, nasty side up, and the knives in the machine will make the top parallel to the bottom. Okay? We will also make sure that our grain, or our feathers if you will, to the best that we can, are running out the back of the machine. Okay, we'll stand to the side. We make sure our hands don't get pinched between the bottom of the board and the top of the table. We look for screws, nails, loose knots, and splits. Those are things to be concerned with. Okay? We also, before we turn this machine on, or before we run one board through it, we make sure that no one is standing behind us. That if something was to go wrong or something was to happen and spit out the back of the machine, that nobody would be there to get hurt, especially yourself, because you're standing off to the side. Okay? If there's any questions, if there's anything that you don't understand, please feel free to go back and ask your instructor. Okay? This is an SCMI machine. You may have the Powermatic. The same thing applies on all these planers and all your schools. It doesn't matter. 1/16, shortest board, 16 inches, stand to the side, make sure no one's back there. Okay?